kids who are really, they generally outclass their child. And instead of sheltering from them, they should say, no, you should go roll with them. You should go seek the hard rolls, even if it's going to be 5 minutes of hell or whatever. That is going to build you up and make you better.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight to Dalpra.
Hey guys, welcome to the Essential Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Essential Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Today we're going to discuss my 10 pet peeves in the dojo, 10 things that piss me off the most. And also I'm going to go into my predictions for Who's Number 121, which is tomorrow night. Anyways, before we do that, could I please remind you to like, share, and subscribe, leave comments in the comment section. If you want to support the show or contact the show, the links are in the bottom. Plus, we just opened our Essential Jiu-Jitsu Podcast merchandise store. If you want to buy some Essential Jiu-Jitsu Podcast merchandise, please check out the link in the bottom. We've got some great stuff in there for you. Take a look. And if, like I said, if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is subscribe to the online academy. Links are in the bottom. Okay, so 10 biggest pet peeves in the dojo. This is from my almost 10 years of experience running a jiu-jitsu academy and being in the industry now. I've been training for about 15, 16 years. I've seen a lot of stuff. Of course, being a gym owner has to do with coexisting with people, managing people, and sort of just learning to accept everyone and their differences and their mannerisms and the different things that they bring that contribute to a gym culture. But I always notice these reoccurring patterns that seem to happen. It's kind of interesting. And as a gym owner, you kind of have to reiterate things to set the tone, to set standards, and make sure that people don't continuously make these mistakes. So my 10 biggest pet peeves. Here we go. Number 1, walking around barefoot off the mats. I think that it should be obvious, but I can see why a lot of people just naturally don't clue into this. If there's a common area where people are walking around from the outside, everyone should be wearing shoes or flip-flops. Of course, jiu-jitsu, if you go into the bathroom where people are, there's piss droplets on the floor and dirt everywhere, you go into the bathroom barefoot and then you come on, you walk onto the mats. We're training on the mats. It is a barefoot sport. And the issue with this is now your face is touching the same mat space that dirty feet that were in the bathroom were touching. Plus there could be cuts or scrapes or things like that are now getting exposed to this bacteria. So I'm not sure what kind of policy your dojo might have about something like this, but it's really important to consider that when you step off the mats, you should always keep your feet as clean as possible to reduce risk of pathogens and contagious infections. Always keep a pair of flip-flops handy on you. I know some gyms, what they'll do is they'll provide their own flip-flops for the bathroom. I see why they do this, because they just don't want people to have bare feet in the washrooms. But at the same time, I also feel like you're sharing shoes with someone now and your feet are coming in contact with other people's feet. I think it's better to just have your own shoes. But therefore, there might be a reason why they're doing this. They might do it because they might be doing it because when you're wearing your sandals on the outside, they don't want that tracked to another part of the gym. And so they've designated inside sandals for certain areas, etc. Either way, doesn't really matter to me as long as you're not going to the bathroom barefoot. Next thing would be training with infections. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. Everyone should have an issue with this. I remember someone telling me that they had been told by an old coach that if they had ringworm or staph, as long as they covered it, that it wouldn't be an issue. And this is kind of concerning because it certainly is an issue. These are very, very contagious contagious infections. And, it's really easy for these infections to spread and to carry on to other people. And before you know it, you've got a bunch of people with ringworm, and it's a huge issue that you now have to get under control. You got to start doing skin checks and things like that. I've had ringworm outbreaks at my gym before, and it gets really frustrating when you keep reiterating to people, hey, you always have to check your skin beforehand, and people just don't do it. And then, you're training with someone and all of a sudden you see a ring on them, or you see even worse, like a boil or something. And it's all because of negligence, right? So everyone should be looking over their person before and after classes, making sure you're doing your regular showering and just don't be a dirty fuck in general. But bringing in infections is kind of a selfish, neglectful move, and we just want to avoid it altogether. So training with infections, if you're at a school that doesn't care about training with infections, and if your instructor isn't talking about things like regular hygiene, if there's not signs or if there's not regular communications about keeping clean, to me, this is kind of a huge issue. And you should always think about, okay, how can we increase hygienic practices in the dojo? Okay, third pet peeve, banging your students. So again, some people might disagree with this. I know there are instructors out there who do view their place of business as a place to hook up with people and as kind of like a dating situation where they can just get random sex from students. To me, that's in poor taste. Of course, you can run your business however you want. I do know multiple gyms that have this, and even worse, I don't even think it's out of the question nowadays. There's people who even groom children and who that take advantage of young kids in their program, and this is so inappropriate and so egregious. If I imagine bringing my daughter or someone like even my son to school, to a martial arts school to learn how to defend themselves, and then before you know it, they end up having a relationship with the instructor. Okay, and this has happened. I've seen it happen. It happens more than you'd think, and I would just recommend to parents out there that do your research before you sign your kid up to any martial arts gym. Research the instructor and just keep an eye out for weird telltale signs with the coaching staff at your gym, because these people do exist, believe me. And for some reason, there seems to be a culture that's afraid of calling them out. But you should definitely, in my opinion, if you're a parent, like, don't even leave your kid alone for private lessons with their instructor. You should always be there supervising, always be in the room. And honestly, for the instructor, it's a good thing too. It's always better to have a third party in the room when there's a one-on-one situation with kids, just for everyone to be safe and so that everyone's transparent. And so that's one thing that I would really recommend. It really bothers me when instructors use their position of power. It doesn't matter if they're white belt girls that come into class, or if it's even kids and they come in and they're in a position of power and they feel like they can abuse that power over these people. And there are a lot of predators out there. So that's, just being real, that's a really big issue that still goes on today, and unfortunately probably will continue. All right. Fourth pet peeve is bad warm-ups. So my warm-ups have changed a lot over the years. I believe it or not, I used to do the old animal drill warm-ups where you bear crawl down the mats and things like that. There could be some transfer of conditioning for these movements, doing things like that. But at the end of the day, you're only running an hour and a half or a 2-hour class, and you really want to maximize your productivity for skill development. And I think that doing things like animal drills is kind of a waste of time. Anyone can do strength and conditioning outside of the gym. When people are in the gym, I think the priority should be, again, to develop skills. And I've been at gyms where they do warm-ups, half hour of calisthenics, push-ups. You jump guard on someone and do sit-ups on them. You pick them up, you run down the mat with them in a fireman carry position. These warm-ups are tough. Yes, they're good for conditioning, but at the same time, why wouldn't we be thinking about our problem-solving skills, trying to be able to develop our skills under pressure and do intricate work rather than doing strength and conditioning that can be done outside of the gym effectively. So if you're at a gym that's doing animal drills or jogging around the mats, you got to ask yourself, are we ever going to be jogging in jiu-jitsu? Is that a skill that we really use in this sport? It's not. So why would we be doing it for a warm-up? Yes, it gets you warm, but it's not going to help you get better at jiu-jitsu. Okay. The next pet peeve, number 5, is too many promotions. So, I feel like there are a lot of adults who are over promoted in general. People who have no business being black belts they're overly promoted. There's someone recently in our area, not in Vancouver, but a couple of hours away, who got promoted from a blue belt to a brown belt. And now they're all sore that everyone online thinks that they're, it's a true story. Everyone online thinks that they're kind of a fraud, right? Because they didn't do their stint at purple belt. And his reasoning for this is that his instructor offered him the purple belt years ago. His instructor is overseas. And when he visited him, and he said he turned it down because he felt that he wasn't ready, rightfully so. This guy's, I don't think, very, very skilled. And then when he went back and visited him recently, his instructor said, oh, well, I would have given you a purple belt, so now I'm going to offer you a brown belt. Who knows who his instructor is? I have no idea who this guy is. And he said, okay, I'll take that because, I should have taken the purple belt at the time anyway. So yes, I'll skip purple and go to brown. And now, and this guy's also very loud online, and he's talking about how, I put in my dues or whatever. I feel like I'm ready for the brown belt. And it's just funny when that happens because this person clearly is not ready for the brown belt, and they're prioritizing the next rank as if that's an achievement, when really an achievement is skill development or being able to hang with brown belts on an international level or even a local level, which this guy is not really capable of. So it's just interesting seeing that. Aside from promoting adults too much, because I do feel that happens in a lot of different gyms, maybe even at the gym that you're training at, but just the IBJJF kids belt promotion system in general, how there is 5 belts. There's 4 colored belts, but 5 if you include the white belt. Yellow, orange, gray, yellow, orange, green are the kids belts. And then each kids belt has 3 subsets of colors. So each colored belt has, the colored belt with the black bar, the white bar, the flat color belt, and then the black stripe on the bar. So each belt, you're talking about 3 different belts for one color. And then each of those belts have 4 different stripes as per usual, right? And I even have seen some schools do extra stripes on top of those white stripes. So there's red stripes as well. I don't even know how that works. Very confusing for me. I don't really like to teach kids that motivation should come through, promotions every month. Just because you show up, you get your stripe every month. The kid becomes accustomed to getting a stripe every month, and does this for many, many years throughout jiu-jitsu. And this is the idea of this is to keep them motivated. Even when they go into a tournament, a white and, a yellow belt with a white stripe is in the same division as a yellow belt with a black stripe. So what's the point of having these different belts aside from just motivating them? I think that kids should be getting used to what life is like, which is, you don't get promoted often. Quite honestly, you have to develop a sense of patience when you're going through the belt system. And I remember when I was an adult going through jiu-jitsu, I didn't do jiu-jitsu as a kid. Going through jiu-jitsu as an adult, you get a promotion maybe once or twice a year. Maybe you get a stripe once or twice a year if you're really, really consistent. So these kids are going to be used to getting stripes every single month. And then when they become an adult, they realize, like, when they get that blue belt, they're like, oh, actually life isn't like this. I'm supposed to get a stripe, once a year, twice a year, depending on how good they are. Right. And I'm not saying that there aren't people who can't, just to talk about the skipping of belts. I'm not saying that some people can't be at the skill where they wouldn't be worthy of skipping blue belt and they're able to beat up purple belts right away. But I am saying IBJJF won't recognize you. And also those people are very, very rare. Okay. They're outliers. Most people need to put in their time, but there are people who are just absolute phenoms who can, skip a lot of steps because maybe they have a previous background in wrestling or they're just very, very phenomenal at jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying that people aren't capable of skipping belt ranks, but, don't be surprised when IBJJF won't let you compete at their tournaments. And that's actually what happened to this guy. Got a letter from IBJJF saying, you're suspended essentially until you've gotten somebody who's legit to sign off on your papers and you haven't gone through the purple belt. Back to the kids thing. I feel like we shouldn't be teaching kids, hey, I'll motivate you with this reward, keep going to jiu-jitsu. And if, this is your reason for coming. No, kids should learn that you should go to jiu-jitsu because it's difficult, because it's a struggle. And we shouldn't be sort of prioritizing the promotions. We should be prioritizing skill development, the lessons on and off the mats, learning how to coexist with teammates, learning how to defend yourself, learning how to problem solve, et cetera, et cetera. Not so much just show up for your X amount of visits and you get your stripe every month. To me, it's a philosophy that I've never really gone with. And I tell my kids right when they come in, hey, like, promotions don't really happen that often, and they're fine with it. If you don't give it to them always, they're fine with waiting. But if you give them promotions always, I feel like we're kind of sending the wrong message to them. Okay, number 6, pet peeve, uniform policy. So again, I know people who have uniform policies. I have friends that own GF Team, Alliance, even Gracie Baja. I know people who are owners of these gyms, these big box gyms in the local area, and they're great people and they run great programs. But something about uniform policy bothers me. Making somebody buy a uniform just to have them train that day, or pardon me, to be a member is strange to me, especially if they're coming from another gym and maybe they have like 10 different gis and now they can't use any of these gis. I know a lot of people who have been deterred from joining these gyms because of uniform policies specifically. Quite a few people actually. So it's not just like a one person didn't like the uniform policy. It's like tons of people I know didn't join these gyms because of the uniform policy. And I get it. Some people look at jiu-jitsu as like a way to express themselves, right? Well, martial arts is a way to express yourself, but when they buy gear, they want to buy gear that they like, and they use that gear as a way to express themselves. So you're denying them the opportunity to do that and to be themselves when you're saying, okay, you have to wear my gear. That being said, I do think a room full of people wearing your logo looks good, but I feel like if you want people to wear your gear, you should make it look good. You should incentivize them to buy it, not force them to buy it just because they're members. But you should say, hey, like, if you want to wear my gear, it's because you want to wear this gear. It's because you enjoy it, because you're proud to wear it. It's good quality, not because you're forced to wear it. Basically, I don't like anyone forcing me to do anything. So maybe that's where that comes from. But yeah, something about uniform policies always just rubs me the wrong way. All right, the next thing is going to be late students. So this is a bit of a pet peeve for me. That being said, it's not the worst thing in the world. I have a pretty relaxed policy about tardiness at the gym. If people show up late, I don't make them wait off to the side before I acknowledge them, even with kids or whatever. I just say, hey, if you show up late, don't come to me and ask me to show the technique that I just showed everyone who was here on time, right? Don't ask me to show you something when you were here late. You're going to have to figure it out, ask around, work it with your teammates and catch yourself up, because it's not fair to them. I might need to go around and help people who are already here on time. So as long as they're okay with that, it's fine. It's when they start to, ask me, oh, what were we doing? What were we doing? It's like, yeah, you should have been here on time. But at the same time, I'm not going to punish someone for showing up late. At my gym, people can honestly show up when they want. They can leave whenever they want. I do think that a conversation is good practice for the student. If they're going to chronically be late, they should come up and they should say, hey, life gets in the way. I have a commute, etc. For whatever reason, I'm not going to be able to be here on a regular basis. I'll miss, the first 10 minutes of class. Is that okay? Yes, no problem. That's great. Okay, it is a little bit frustrating when people show up late when they don't have anywhere else to be. And it's just because they don't leave early enough. That is kind of annoying. But I do know a guy who he had a black belt visit his gym who is well known in the city, and the guy was about 20-30 minutes late, and this guy just sent him home, which is pretty funny. Sending a black belt home because he's late. It's like, yeah, I mean, you could be that strict or you can choose to be non-formal and relaxed. That's sort of my approach, but being late is kind of frustrating when the student now wants extra attention and it's like, yeah, you should have been here. Okay. All right. This one is really frustrating. This pet peeve. This is people leaving their stuff all over the gym when they go. This is honestly one of the worst, aside from maybe walking bare feet or training with a staph infection, leaving water bottles, dirty gear in the gym. Like, check your kit before you go home, okay? And this is something that happens literally on a daily basis for me. And I've talked to other gym owners and it's the same thing. Like after practice, I'll look around. There'll always be articles of clothing. There'll always be water bottles. I've even found car keys before. I have a set of car keys at the gym that I'm afraid to throw out because they're fucking car keys. And they've been there for months. And I wonder, like, whose were these? How did they leave without the car keys? I've had people leave shoes at the gym before. And I'm like, do I throw these out? I don't know. Basically, if I find dirty gear at the gym, if it's underwear, I immediately throw it out. If it's rash guards, shorts, I give it the old smell check and I check the condition. If it's good, I'll keep it and wash it for them, which again, I shouldn't. I should just throw it out. And if there's any smell or if there's any poor conditioned clothing left behind, I just throw it out. Otherwise, I leave articles of clothing or water bottles in a lost and found, and then I usually throw it out after a couple of weeks. And I tell people, hey, there's stuff in the lost and found. I'm going to throw it out. No one ever claims it. It's interesting. So I would just recommend, if you're one of those students who's leaving shit chronically at your instructor's gym, trust me, it gets noticed. And if it gets thrown out, it's kind of your fault. You should always check your kit before you go over. Do a 1-over, make sure you got everything. Don't leave things around the gym for your instructor to clean up after you, right? Like, treat it like it's your home. Would you come home and just take off your rash guard and throw it on the ground and leave it there? You wouldn't, right? So don't be that person who just is neglectful about how they get dressed and they get changed from the gym and they're always leaving shit around. I notice it happens quite a bit. Now let's talk about parents. So, I have a lot of great parents at my gym, very supportive people. It's a team environment. It's awesome. But there is times where kids will, they'll complain to their parents or they'll be crying to their parents, and their parents come to me upset because they're, they think that the other the kids who they're rolling with are rolling dangerously or too aggressively. And then I watch them and I'm thinking like, no, I think you're seeing through a lens that's biased because it's your kid who's getting beaten. A lot of the time it's never unsafe, but it's more just that their child is getting outclassed. And, if there is people who are training unsafe, I need to know about it. That's part of my job as an instructor. And I feel like I should be privy to that information. But that being said, parents who let their kids quit sports because it's hard and they don't put anything in place of that sport, that's where there's an issue, right? Like, even if they're going to take their kids out of the jiu-jitsu program, that's fine, but put them in something else where they can funnel their energy and they can learn how to coexist with other kids and they can learn fair play and how to problem solve and things like that. That's why jiu-jitsu is so valuable for kids, because they learn how to defend themselves, they learn how to problem solve. And the second your kid, realizes, oh shit, this sport's going to be hard on me, this is going to be a long ass journey, that's not the time to take them out. That is a time to reinforce why they're in the program. Tell them why you're putting them in there. Say, hey, I'm putting you in this program, in this sport, because it's difficult. Okay, because it's hard, because it's going to bring out the best in you. You're going to have good days where you can, your moves work and you can beat people up. You're going to have bad days where you get beaten up. That's part of the sport. I know kids who have no problem rolling with lower ranks, smaller people, and they absolutely fuck them up. But then when there's that one kid who can tune them up, they can't handle it. Okay, and they start crying. They start and go and complain to mom or dad. And before you know it, I'm getting complaints and there's a situation, right? What I love to see is when a parent sees their kid struggling and the kid comes to them crying and the parent just says, they just dust them off and they say, you know what, try again. Like, it's okay. You don't have to cry. You're crying because you're losing, not because you're injured. And don't get so frustrated. Instead, take the angle, be grateful for those training partners that fuck you up, because life is hard. Life is full of struggle. And generally in life, there's usually always someone better than you at something. And it's good to accept that. And it's good to work towards that rather than avoid it. A lot of these parents that I've dealt with, they try to shelter their kids from rolling with these other students, these other difficult kids who are really, really, they generally outclass their child. And instead of sheltering from them, they should say, no, you should go roll with them. You should go seek the hard rolls, even if it's going to be 5 minutes of hell or whatever. That is going to build you up and make you better. And I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to quit football. I did football for 1 year. I was the smallest kid on the team. And my mom forced me to go back in there. And I said, I want to quit. This is really, really hard. I'm getting beat up. She said, you said you wanted to do this. You committed to a year. You can quit next year, but let's finish the season. And that was like a really good lesson for me. She didn't let me quit in that moment. And I feel like so often kids tell their parents, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And the parent just says, okay, that's fine. Won't make you do it. It's like, but there's really good reasons for you to want to do this. Give it some time. Look at the good reasons why we're doing this, and hopefully they start to see, oh, okay, this is good for me. And as they get better and better, they realize, oh, I can actually like start to express myself in jiu-jitsu. I can start to make things happen against my teammates. And I see my teammates as, I don't take it personal when I lose. I just accept that that's part of the journey and that's part of life as well. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about here, the last pet peeve is going to be people not paying dues. And this happens a lot as a gym owner. I have people dropping in often. They drop in and they just don't offer if they want to, if they can pay, which is super strange to me, because to me, starting as a gym owner, I remember when, I was paying rent when I first opened my gym the first couple years and like barely had any students. It takes time to develop a student base. I can still remember those days when I was running my program and I would have nobody show up, but I was still paying rent. Now I have like a pretty decently successful school, and now people come in and they want to train and then they just like leave without asking to pay. And this happens more than you would believe. Okay. You would think out of just out of common courtesy, people would come in and they want to utilize a service. So the first thing they do is say, what do I owe you? That's what I do when I go to any gym just to train. Even though I'm a black belt, I go in, I ask to pay. Most people say, oh, it's fine because you're a black belt. That's very kind of them. But at the same time, I always offer to pay, because I remember the time when I was that martial arts gym owner who didn't have anyone coming in, and like, you're living check to check sometimes, and it almost neglects those hard times when you weren't successful, when someone comes in and they don't offer to pay. They don't know about the times when you sacrificed and you didn't get any students coming in at all, and there were times when I opened my gym and I thought, am I even going to be able to make a career out of this? Am I going to be able to do this career path? Am I going to have to go back to my old previous job? So always ask if you can pay, always ask if you can, contribute to the gym, a drop-in fee or whatever, or even just clean the mats, like some kind of a showing of gratitude for them having this business. It's not easy to start any business, and to keep the business running does take resources. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the system that we live in. So if you think that you can just come in and bounce around from gym to gym and not pay, even for like an open mat situation, I feel like open mat, there should be a fee to come in and train. It's a day just like any other day where the lights have to be on, and therefore the rent has to be paid. And I think that it's important that we show gratitude to gym owners and always offer to pay. Aside from that, there is one more thing that has to do with dues. And this time it's from the customer's perspective. One of my pet peeves is contracts that you get locked into. So quite often you'll get locked into like a year-long contract. And if you don't like it, you have to pay a fee or something if you want to exit the contract, or you just have to let the contract run out. I've been a part of contracts like this at previous gyms where I was stuck and I was locked in, and I pledged that when I have a gym, I would never do that to anyone. And, is it more lucrative to lock people into contracts for year-long contracts and not let them leave? It is, but at the same time, I don't want anyone leaving my gym where they want to leave, but yet they're still forced to pay. And I don't want anyone to have a negative experience at my gym and they want to exit their contract, or they have to for whatever reason. Maybe they're moving away. They shouldn't have to keep paying, in my opinion. So that's another thing that kind of bothers me about current gyms and how contracts are set up. All right, those are my pet peeves. Now let's go on to who's number 121. This is going tomorrow, I believe this event is. And man, this event is fucking crazy. It is a stacked card, probably one of the biggest cards I've ever seen in jiu-jitsu. I mean, almost every single fight on this card could be a main event somewhere. This is a who's event, who's names on this card. And we're going to see a lot of great matches, I think, under the who's number 1 rule set. For those of you who don't know, who's number 1 rule set is 15 minutes. It's sub only. It's referee's decision after the match, I believe, based on 3 5-minute blocks. So there's no advantages, no points. It's just each 5 minutes is scored in favor for blue or red. And yeah, I think it's a great rule set. Obviously, all subs legal. So let's just go down the card and talk about some of the matches, because there are some bangers on this card. The first one I'm looking at is Helena Crevar versus Julia Maele, I believe her name is Maele. Anyways, Helena Crevar, obviously everyone knows who she is. She's a prodigy out of New Wave Jiu Jitsu. She's got the pigtails. She's a fucking beast, man. I mean, she's only a blue belt technically, but she can beat black belts, and she has beaten black belts. She's an excellent grappler, especially under a sub-only rule set. This is where she truly thrives. Julia Maele, I need to know how to pronounce that name. She's an ADCC veteran, and I believe it's her first time on the Who's Number One platform. I'm interested to see this, but I know Helena Crevar is an excellent submission hunter, and she did just lose the East Coast trials. I forget who she lost to, but she lost because she pulled guard in the overtime period, giving her a -1 point. And I always recommend against pulling guard in that setting because now you're down 1 and your opponent literally can just kind of play keep away and win the match, which is kind of what happened. It's hard to score in ADCC, especially when you're down 1. The clock is ticking. Now you're fighting the clock. It would almost be better to get taken down and turtle, and then you can work your guard game if you're a true guard player like Helena is. It seems that wrestling appears to be her Achilles heel. But in this situation, she can just sit down, start hunting submissions from her guard. She's got great leg locks, incredible upper body attacks like triangles and things like that. I am excited to watch that because I am a fan of Helena Crevar. It's cool to see someone, I believe she's only 15. It's cool to see someone of her age who's so calm in competition and so effective and has such good technique. And looking to see her bounce back after that last loss at ADCC Trials East Coast. So this next match is interesting. Tainan Dalpra versus Troy Russell. Now, Tainan Dalpra is one of my favorite grapplers, period. Now, we haven't seen him in a no-gi situation yet. He's purely a gi grappler. Of course, he's from the Art of Jiu-Jitsu camp and incredible jiu-jitsu. He's got world titles. I believe he's won PANs. He just won the IBJJF crown. He won it very decisively. He submitted Andy Murasaki. This guy is incredible. I love watching this guy all the time. I learn a lot from him. I love his instructionals too. His long step pass for me was game changing when I studied it for Top Game in the gi. And it's going to be very interesting to see how a pure gi grappler can transition to a no gi situation against Troy Russell. And of course, having Hafa and Guy Mendez in his corner, as well as the killers at AOJ like Cole Abate and Jonathan Alves. And, it's such a deep room. I have no doubt that he's going to be very, very effective under this, under the Who's Number One banner. And I can't wait to see what he does without the gi and how his game translates without the gi. I've seen him use a lot of X guard, a lot of K guard in the gi, but without grips, it's going to be, it'll just be interesting to see how he does. Now, Troy Russell, I'm not sure who Troy Russell is actually. He doesn't seem like a super highly ranked opponent for Tainan Dalpra. It's kind of like, we'll just give him some mid-tier guy for Tainan Dalpra to cut his teeth with. Of course, Flow Grappling kind of giving Tainan Dalpra, I would say, a grappler that is of lesser, his pedigree is not as high as Tainan Dalpra, let's just say. Tainan Dalpra beating people at the world level. But nonetheless, still an interesting match. And I'm looking forward to seeing Tainan Dalpra compete, as I always do. Love the way this guy fights. Just like Nicholas Maragali, this guy is one of the most exciting fighters in the gi. He's one of the guys who can consistently get submissions over and over again. And it's hard to get submissions in the gi. So look out for that match. Very, very excited for that. Now we got Roosevelt Sousa versus Luke Griffith. Roosevelt Sousa from Fight Sports trains under Cyborg Abreu. Roosevelt is a beast. He's got titles. And he of course he got heel hooked quickly by Gordon in the ADCC rule set at the Worlds, but going against one of the, I don't know if you call him a junior or a senior at New Wave, Luke Griffith just won ADCC Asian Trials. He's a beast. He's either hot or cold. I remember watching him, I believe it was at AGA, and he got his guard passed multiple times against this Dagestani guy, and it was a pretty poor showing. But then you see him out at East Coast Trials and at Nogi Pans, and he just smashes everyone. So Luke Griffith, clearly a very big, skilled opponent. That's going to be a great match. I'm going to pick, I haven't even made my picks so far on this yet. First of all, I'll pick Helena Crevar. I'll pick Tainan Dalpra over Troy Russell. And then I'm going to pick Luke Griffith over Roosevelt Sousa. My prediction is he heel hooks him, but I could be wrong. Then next match, we have Lovato Jr. versus Pedro Marinho. So this is another great match. I'm going to pick Pedro Marinho in this match. I think he's going to be too young and too aggressive for Lovato. But that being said, I think Lovato is capable of beating a guy like Pedro Marinho. Lovato just coming off a victory on, who did he fight? He just submitted, it slips my mind right now. Hopefully it'll come to me. But Lovato Jr. having some pretty decent showings lately. Of course, he just won Masters Worlds, I don't know, for like the 6th time or something like that. Lovato's a legend. I love seeing him compete. He's still competing, still winning. And Pedro Marinho, obviously, very, very good as well in a no-gi situation. So I'm going to pick Pedro Marinho on this one. I think he's just going to be too much for Lovato. Okay, next match, Kody Steele versus Mica Galvao. This match is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, actually. I fought Kody Steele at East Coast Trials. He's an absolute beast. Although, that being said, I think Mica Galvao he's just too hot right now. He's such a submission specialist, and he throws flying arm bars out of nowhere. He's very, very good at flying arm bars. He's good at leg locks. He catches submissions everywhere. I think he's just going to be too much for Kody Steele. But that being said, Kody Steele could take him into deep waters. Kody is as scrappy as they come. He's aggressive. He can get to the back. His wrestling is excellent. I think a lot of people are counting Kody out of this match just because Mica is who he is, and I think that that's a mistake. I think that Kody has a lot to offer in this rule set, and I think that is going to be a friggin' barn burner. I'm gonna pick. It's hard to go against Mica, right? He's just so dominant. I think I got to pick Mica. But that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Kody just edges him out and just is so gritty that he grinds him out and wins. But that being said, I'll pick Mica. Okay, now we have Diogo Reis versus Diego Pato. Both of these guys, incredible fighters, world-class guys. I believe both world champions. Diogo Reis just coming off of the ADCC World Championships, winning his division. Is he the youngest guy to ever win his division? No, Kade is the youngest guy to win his division, I believe. But Diogo is right up there. I think he's only 21, and he's fighting Diego Pato. I always talk about Diego Pato when we talk about leg locks. Diego Pato's got some of the best leg locks in jiu-jitsu. Incredible leg lock style. He has really great finishes over guys like Kennedy Maciel. He's got a amazing knee bar finish against Josh Cisneros. He's just so slick. His guard is so sticky. An interesting type of guard. He almost plays a open guard like he's playing against somebody in the gi. Very much grip-based supine guard with his feet on the outside, which is in contrast to the Danaher, Gordon Ryan 2 feet inside system. So it's very, very interesting the way that he sets up his leg attacks. He's got great false reap options, K-guard attacks. Diego Pato is unreal. But that being said, I feel like Diogo Reis is just, right now he's just so effective. He always finds a way to win. And he's going to be putting Diego Pato under a lot of pressure. I see Diego pulling guard and Diogo just absolutely harassing him from the top position. Hard to say if Diego will get to his finishing positions, but I got to give this match to Baby Shark, Diogo Reis. And then last on the card, we have Lucas Hulk Barbosa versus Giancarlo Bodoni. Giancarlo Bodoni looking very dominant recently, but coming off of a loss to Fabricio Andre, who is such an exciting guy. What was that at Polaris at the Absolute division? Bodoni losing, I believe, by a takedown to Fabricio Andre. Super impressive showing by Fabricio Andre. Like I said, one of my favorite guys to watch. And now Bodoni's got, I believe this is his 3rd match against Lucas Barbosa. I could be wrong on that. Barbosa is a fucking beast. And if he gets to your back, it's very, very difficult to escape. He's choked out a lot of good guys. But that being said, I mean, Bodoni's on another level right now. I think that was a minor slip up against Fabricio Andre. And I think we're going to see Bodoni really put on a show tomorrow night. But, you know, I could see this match going either way. It was originally supposed to be Gordon Ryan versus Lucas Barbosa, and Gordon dropped out with a rib injury, which is really unfortunate because this card is incredible. The only thing it's missing is Gordon Ryan. I think that Gordon Ryan versus Lucas Barbosa wouldn't have been close at all. You know, that would have been a one-sided match. There's no way in the world Lucas Barbosa passes Gordon's guard or submits him. Gordon is just such a submission specialist, and especially under a rule set like this, there's just no way that Lucas would have beat him. So now that Gordon's hurt and Giancarlo is in there, it's way more even of a match, I think. It's way more interesting. They are more around the same size, whereas Gordon was much bigger than Hulk. So I think that this is actually a good thing for the event, even though I love watching Gordon. I think it's just more of a competitive match. At the end of the day, I'm going to give it to Giancarlo Bodoni. And man, this card is absolutely stacked. Can't wait to watch it. This all happens tomorrow night. If this episode's coming out on Wednesday, it's coming out tomorrow. It's happening tomorrow night. Who's number 121? Just incredible card. I hope you guys can check that out. All right, guys. So that was my pet peeves and my who's number one preview tomorrow night. Okay, so right now I'd like to tell you how to support the show. Check the links in the bottom. Sign up to the online academy for $10 a month. Guys, also I should mention the prices are going up for the online academy. So if you want to subscribe to the online academy under the old prices, we're having a Black Friday sale, and this ends at the end of the year. So if you message me, I can give you access to the old code, and you can be grandfathered in if you want to support the show for $10 a month. It would really, really help me keep the lights on. I would appreciate all the support. Also, suggestions for show ideas, you can contact me at the links in the bottom. If you guys also want to support, check out my kids' book. It's in the bottom. And of course, Essential Jiu-Jitsu Podcast merchandise. You can support the show by checking out the online store in the bottom. All right, you guys, and that's the end of the show. Hope you have a great day. Enjoy the fights tomorrow night. Get on the mats. And remember, the Essential Jiu-Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Take care, guys.